Okay, we're going to talk about how a startup can choose the right path to go public or get acquired. This particular webinar is going to be on a very big picture level. So we're going to kind of look at it from a third party point of view, from sort of outside. So you're going to have to kind of step out of your shoes, step out of your comfort zone, and really see it from a big picture. And hopefully you can follow me. On the agenda, we're basically going to talk about the big picture just so you can understand how a startup becomes a public company, and we're going to kind of dive into some of the details which I'm hoping will put you on the right path to become a public company one day. Positioning of the company, leadership skills, the mindset that you need to have, and the benchmarks that you should be following. The first thing, and I'm not going to cover too much in this webinar, there's different kinds of startups, right? There's a startup that literally just started or have not even started, and there are startups that are just a few employees under $1 million. The startup that just started, or at least you're doing less than $200,000 annually in sales, this doesn't apply as much to you because I call that you're sort of still in the storm. You have to pass the storm. The storm means that whatever you're doing is not still proven to work. In other words, it's not proven that your particular business model will even work. I've been there. I mean, I've started a few companies where my full focus went. There was mainly two companies, three, I guess. Before Shopping Cart Elite, we had the retail and wholesale operation, and with Shopping Cart Elite, what we have right now. So we have two companies, and with the previous company, I was also kind of stuck in that 200,000 annual sales at one point, and we kind of couldn't get traction, and then finally we got some traction and started to move forward. Eventually we stopped at, I believe, 4 million in sales before we sold the company, and there was a lot that stopped us. You know, I was kind of blaming the technology, which was true. I mean, technology was a big part of it, but everything else, I mean, I don't think we were ready to go past even 2 million. I'm surprised we got to 4 with the mindset that we had and the knowledge we had. So bottom line is, if you're under 200,000, I mean, you're still in the storm. Hopefully you can pass that point, and this webinar would apply to you. The other thing is, it's not really about money, and I'm very curious. I always look things up and research things, and I kind of stumbled upon this article at one point, Is It Worth Getting Rich? On Quora. It's a really good resource to get questions and answers. There's a lot of people who did get rich in a young age, and you should read it. It's a great link, but I took some quotes out of it. One of them is, one guy said, being rich is better than not being rich, but it's not nearly as good as you imagine it is. And he kind of goes into the detail of why, and this is a quote from Fight Club, the movie, advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need. Bottom line is, it's not just about money. It's about also having fun doing all of this and actually going from the startup stage and trying to measure your benchmarks and reaching new goals and learning more stuff. And we were there as well. It was a huge struggle, and sometimes we would have doubts, like, what the hell are we doing? But at the end of the day, if you just do it knowing that it's not for the money and you're doing it because you have a larger goal to achieve something with your company, it'll be fun, and you can then take risks without worrying, well, okay, so you lose money, and thankfully we're in America, and you could just file a bankruptcy and start over, in the worst case scenario. Let's move on. Big picture. First of all, you have to envision the end. When I was in the first company, I couldn't even see what's happening tomorrow. Forget about the end. And because I couldn't envision the end, I was taking these baby steps, and because it was kind of new ground for me, I was constantly hitting roadblocks and constantly doing the wrong thing. Even with Shopping Cart Elite, and I'll touch on that in a bit, with our branding, we had to do our branding 3 times, and that's because instead of kind of learning everything about it and then moving forward, I was just jumping into it. And then I couldn't see the end vision of where we needed to take the branding, and then until I saw that end vision, we couldn't get anywhere. So with the end vision, let's say you're selling products. Is it really about just making a few bucks and trying to survive, or is it something bigger than that? Why are you selling the products you're selling? We'll get into the positioning in a second, because sometimes you really have a true passion and a vision for a certain thing that you're doing with products, but then financially just might not make sense, and it's just too high of a risk to try to make it work. Another thing with vision, I told this recently to my staff at Shopping Cart Elite. I'll use an example of a data migration project. So you have a data migration project, and the client comes to you and he says, here is what I want. I want this to be plugged in like this, and here's what I want. Now, if that individual does not see or does not know what's possible, he basically goes by his previous knowledge. Now, if you who makes the decisions on a shopping cart lead side, if you're the one who's going to say, okay, we'll just do what you say, without seeing the vision yourself, what's going to end up happening is if you both can't see a vision, it's very easy to kind of get into that spinning tires where you're doing something and you're doing it wrong and the other party is getting frustrated and you're just kind of going in circles because he sees some kind of a vision but not the final one, and you don't even see a vision because you're taking these small baby steps and it never works out. So I said, look, before you agree to any kind of project, you have to see the end vision. You have to really envision when the project finishes and then align yourself to do the work to finish it. You can't just say yes to everything and hope it works. So this see the end of the vision applies to your company as well. Like, you cannot just say, okay, I'll just go day by day and see what happens tomorrow. You really have to see how your company is going to go public, or maybe you can't envision that. So what can you envision? Like, how far can you get this company? Because if the only thing you can see is, oh, I wish I can get to $100,000 a year in sales or $1 million a year in sales or whatever that number is, that's as far as you're going to go. When we were positioning Shopping Cart Elite and I was saying, look, we need to get to 100 million in revenue, I was looking for ways to get to 100 million. I was not looking for ways to get to 1 million or 10 million. Now, because I did start looking at those particular ways, our company started to grow revenue-wise. The only reason why it started to grow because we needed to get to that big end vision goal. It's not just about the revenue. Obviously, the revenue translated into the things we wanted to do. So we wanted to provide better service. We wanted to get more developers. We wanted to get just more of everything. I was seeing the end vision of where we need to go, and I was kind of aligning ourselves. So then let's talk about positioning. Most companies, at least our clients with Shopping Cart Elite, you're very far from going public, but it's very realistic for anyone here to reach $10 million using Shopping Cart Elite's platform. And this is basically what I want to touch more on in this webinar about getting to $10 million in e-commerce sales. So first, how do you know if you're ready to even get to that point? Usually I say that if you don't have a healthy net profit, there's no way it's going to work out. Let's not look at the exceptional examples like Amazon or some other company that has financial backing from venture capitalists. Let's just take a look at a bootstrapped operation like yourself that needs to guarantee results. In other words, yes, we can throw $100,000 at advertising and hope it works, but what are the risks? We have to weigh the risks. And usually the higher net profit, the lower the chance that you'll fail. And by the way, when I talk about net profit, I'm talking about 50% net profit or higher. If you're lower than 50%, it doesn't mean you're going to fail. It just means the odds start to deplete because you need money to advertise, you need money to expand, you need money to hire people. And every time you want to try to do that, it's like, oh, we don't have enough cash for that. Well, why not? Why don't you have enough cash? Well, because we don't make enough profit, right? So the profit is the core problem. Sometimes you have to take bets and take loans out and take credit out to cover the risks. But the bottom line is that if you did have enough net profit coming in, you wouldn't need to take those kind of risks. The company would just fund its own kind of risks, per se. So the other thing is with the unique value proposition. If everyone is doing the same thing you're doing, if there's 10,000 people doing the same thing and you're going to be 10,001 and you have no unique value proposition, so in other words, I'm just another dropshipper selling on eBay, selling the same product, or if you say something very vague, oh, customer services are number one priority, but you don't really mean it because you have nothing to back that up, like you have no systems in place to back that type of customer service. It's all words. It's not really a unique value proposition. So a unique value proposition happens when you are the number one in a market of one, right? And you can position yourself that way. You can actually find something. Look at us, for example, Shopping Cart Elite, right? We compete with 500 or so different technologies that we compete against on the shopping cart side. Segmenting the market down, we might have a few dozen companies that we compete against. The way we positioned ourselves, we said we're going to be the only one to automate the whole business. And our goal is 30 days. On some stores, we have achieved that goal. On some stores, we totally missed it. But we're improving every day. And right now, we're actually pretty good. Most of the stores we set up right now is within 30 days unless it's a complex project. But the bottom line is there's nobody in the industry competing in that. You go to any platform, nobody's offering this type of service. Nobody's offering what we're doing. So our unique value proposition is that we will automate the business in 30 days. And this is everything we're going to do to make that happen. And when you have a shopping cart, like I'll give you one example of a shopping cart that I've kind of spoke to their CEO. I believe it's Mary Commerce, if I'm not mistaken. He's targeting startups, but then he's making these advanced custom functionality for a few of his clients. And he was asking me, how do you keep up with all of this? And I said, well, if I was trying to market to absolutely everybody, I probably wouldn't keep up with it. And we're already barely keeping up with the demands we have now for clients in our segment. You're targeting like everybody combined. So obviously, this is almost impossible to achieve. So bottom line is that you have this huge market, right? Whatever products you're selling. Richard with Green Frontiers has joined us on the webinar. Let me pull up his website. This is a great example because I actually did consulting with Richard and I can kind of relate to his situation. So Richard sells water filter systems that energizes the water and cleans the water. And his product was aligned to everybody. Like anybody who wants to drink clean water should buy the system. Except the value proposition is, well, there's all kinds of products in the market that do this. And why would I pay $2,000 for your system versus buying it for $200 in Costco? It needed a very specialty market. The specialty market we chose was pregnant women who are about to have babies, and for them, it's a very emotional purchase because they are going to do the best for their newborn, and money is not it doesn't matter anymore. Same thing with weddings. Like, it doesn't matter how much the dress costs, so I'm going to buy it. Same thing here. It doesn't matter how much money it costs to do the best for my newborn. Whatever it is, I'm going to spend it. Richard took a product that targets absolutely everybody in the world, and he just segmented everybody to pregnant women. And everything about the content that he publishes and everything that he pitches is to pregnant women. Videos are for pregnant women. He just took his market and he shrinked it down to, I mean, there's a lot of pregnant women, but still, he shrinked it from tens of millions to whatever that number is, 1 million or under 1 million. He took a big market, shrinked it, and guess what? He became the number one in a market of one. There's nobody competing with him in this product for this niche. Nobody. Now, of course, he still has a lot of work to do to expand the company to where he wants it to go, but the positioning is there. The positioning is there for him to become a $10 million company if he wants to, because he aligned himself to a very specific target market with a very specific message, with a very specific product that aims for that target market. And by the way, Richard competes with Costco, $200, you can buy the same thing. Well, not the same thing, but something equivalent to what he's selling can be bought for $200 in Costco. But exactly what he's selling, you can't buy it anywhere. And he positioned himself that, look, you cannot buy this anywhere. Here's why this system is better than the system in Costco. And this is why you should buy it, right? So he took himself where he was not number one. He was the 10,001st store owner. And he made himself be number one in a market of one. That's the unique value proposition I'm talking about. I'll reference a course that I can recommend that everybody takes to understand your own unique value proposition. But using Richard's example, he does have a healthy net profit. He sells one product, he can easily fund a marketing campaign without any problems because his pay-per-click is not very expensive and he has a very high profit margin on the product he sells. He has a unique value proposition. So as far as his product goes, he definitely aligned himself to become a $10 million company if he chooses to. The last thing is that you really need to understand at what point are you ready to press the gas pedal. So once you've aligned yourself, once you pass the $200,000 stage, once you see the end vision, you're saying, okay, I see it. I see myself getting to 10 million. I can envision it, right? And I know I have the net profits to support my growth, to hire new people and fund advertising. And I know that I have this unique value proposition because nobody else is doing what I'm doing with this particular way I'm marketing it. So now I'm ready to floor the gas pedal. And when you floor the gas pedal, you're either going to succeed or you're going to crash and burn. So you really have to be careful when you press that gas pedal. I've attempted to press the gas pedal with Shopping Cart Elite about 1.5 years ago without being prepared for the operations side, which we're going to cover. I guess we'll cover that next, but I'll just tell you the story about that. So we started marketing more, and we started getting more clients coming in, but we did not have the staff to support the additional clients. So we didn't have the tech support. We didn't have operations. We didn't have anything pretty much when we first started marketing the full setup service. Obviously, we were kind of building out our systems as we went forward, but it was very, very hard, and it would have been a lot easier if everything was prepared in advance. The problem is that there's not a lot of examples, because nobody did what we did, so we were the first ones, and we kind of had to invent it from scratch. But if you're a reseller of a product, you can easily reference other companies that went through those difficulties and succeeded, and you can see how they did it. Great example is Amazon. I just finished reading their book, The Everything Store. It's a big book. There is a lot of strategies that are disclosed in that book on how Amazon does things. I was actually surprised about some of the techniques they use with their software because I never even thought about doing it, but the know-how and the knowledge is there. You just have to get to it, and we'll cover that in a second. But you have to position yourself. After you've reached $200,000, you have to figure out, okay, if I'm going to floor the gas pedal to get to 10 million, will my profits support my advertising and hiring of people? Because if the answer is no, then you got to rethink your business model. And is my unique value proposition strong enough or not? Like, how many competitors do I really have? Am I like number 10 out of 10, or am I number 1 out of 1? So then we go into branding. Branding, to be honest, I had no idea what the hell branding it was about a year and a half ago. I mean, I've ran companies, but I did not truly understand branding. I did not understand brand. Just a bunch of gibberish to me, which I'm sure many of you might think of it as gibberish as well. Here is how I overcame the branding and finally got it. Well, before I read the book, Apple, under Steve Jobs, they did something to me which I could not understand, and I really wanted to find out what the hell they did to me, because I own an iPhone, and when Android became popular, the specs on the Android is a lot better than the iPhone. You know, and it's cheaper, well, maybe same price, but bigger screen, better specs, better camera, better this, better that. And I would agree. At one point, I would actually say, yes, the Samsung is better than the iPhone. But then I would go and buy the next iPhone. I would not even consider Samsung, right? Now, of course, you can call that whatever you want to call it, but at the end of the day, the way I felt is like, what the hell did they do to me for me to favor this phone and this brand so much that there's a better product in the market, but I still go and buy a less product for more money? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. This is how it kind of settled in my head that, okay, Apple did something to me that's called branding. What the hell did they do to me? Like, why do I feel the way I feel about this company? Like, why do I feel anything about this company? Why do I even care about this company? I actually care about the company, you know? So I started researching it, and first thing is I read this book, Steve Jobs' biography. What was interesting in that book is they're talking about the design and how the customer... Anyway, if you read the book, you know what I'm talking about. If not, then read it. It's a really good book, and bottom line is he just talks about the importance of a great product and the importance of the design and so on and so on. But I was trying to listen to the book between the lines because obviously it wasn't disclosing everything. And after I finished reading the book, I still was a bit confused. I still didn't understand, like, how is this possible? Yes, I know if you have a good product, I know if you have good customer service, good design, all of this I understand, but it still doesn't make any sense why I love this brand more than, let's say, Samsung. Now, keep in mind that while all of this was happening, we were already trying to figure out the branding for Shopping Cart because I'm like, I want to be like Apple, so I think we should do this. And we started doing the design. I didn't go in this exact order, but I'll just touch on the things I went through. Then I encountered a book called Culture Code. You can Google for it, Culture Code. The Culture Code was written by a board of advisors. He actually still is on the board for many of the Fortune 100 companies, Chrysler, Jeep. There's a bunch of different companies. And what he does for them is he does the branding for them. So he basically started talking about how he does his work and how he comes up with his conclusions. What really kind of shocked me about his findings and the way he works is, let me pull Jeep Wrangler just to give you an example. So Jeep Wrangler, I don't know if they have a Jeep Wrangler in 1985. I'm trying to find an older one. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to touch on it too much, but let's look at the new Wrangler. The new Wrangler was designed to look like a horse. The headlights are the eyes. This is the nose. This is the mouth. The reason why you have a convertible top without doors is because it wants to replicate a horse. The reason why all the commercials are about the outdoors is because it wants to replicate a horse being outdoors and you're on the horse. So the whole branding behind this particular car was about this car being a horse. Before this guy came in and said, let's design this car to be a horse, the company was about to go bankrupt. And they were about to shift their strategies to basically do something like some other Ford or whatever they were doing, and complete brand identity crisis. Like, they had no idea what the hell they're doing. They're like, okay, let's take a piece from here, let's take a piece from here, let's take a piece from there, and make a Frankenstein out of this car, and hopefully it works. So this guy comes in and he did his research and he said, let's make it a horse. Just to give you some insight on why he chose it, he basically said during the World War, I believe, II, this car was known to be sort of like the liberator, right? Because when the war ended in Europe. But in US, people couldn't relate to that. So they had to come up with something else. That's how he came up with a course. Anyway, you can read that book. It's probably one of the best branding books I've ever read in my life. So what's the point of all this? The point is that as soon as he did this, the company became like record sales, the most profitable. And what's funny is if you know somebody who likes this car and you ask if they like horses, they're probably going to say, yes, how did you know that? And well, there you go. Because the branding did that. Apple pulled the same thing. Apple did exactly the same thing. They basically got on the emotional level with their everything, with their design, with their commercials, with their message, and everything was simple and beautiful. That's what they were trying to push. They were trying to sell you a piece of art. That's really what they were doing, and everything about it is like a piece of art, even the functionality of the software. That's why I actually prefer Apple over Android, because the software works a lot smoother. At least it used to. I don't know. I haven't looked at Android lately. So what the culture code showed me is it's like, okay, I get it now. I need to not just create a beautiful looking website. That's fine. I need to do everything to align with the vision, right? I need to align everything. But the customer service has to understand why the design was implemented, the way we do work, the way we function. We all have to be in the same boat, in other words. If you're trying to pass a message that, hey, we provide great customer service, right? I know a lot of people say that, hey, we have great customer service, that's why we're going to be a public company, because we're going to be like Zappos. The problem is that if you were able to clone yourself 100 times, maybe you had a chance. But what you feel and what's in your head about your company is not what your employees feel. It's not what your future employees feel. It's not what your customers feel. It's only what you feel. That was my biggest problem with Shopping Cart Elite. If you look at the old design from 2011, it was just so bad. It was actually not bad for 2011, but compared to what we have now, it was pretty bad. And when somebody's compared us to somebody else, I felt like exploding because I had this very strong feeling about our company, but I could not describe it in a few words. And the reason why I couldn't describe it, because few words wasn't enough. It has to be everything. It has to be the design, it has to be the way we work, it has to be the advertising, it has to be absolutely everything. The videos, everything has to be in line with it. And that's why today we're able to pass the message very clearly. Everybody in the webinar here, I'm assuming, are clients. And that's one of the reasons why you might feel the way you feel about our company, because over the last 2 years, we've put a lot into implementing everything from the way we do our marketing messages to the videos to the graphics to the way our customer service works to the systems we put in place. So all of that was done on purpose. Nobody came and told me how to do it. I actually learned all that from Culture Code, and I'll reference the course in a second, the course that really helped me understand what I wanted to do with the company, understand the customer, and so on. Again, touching on the branding, you have something in your head. There was a study in Harvard. There was a bunch of students, and the experiment was that one student was given a bunch of famous songs like Happy Birthday, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. So we got student A who's going to basically know the song, and student B does not know the song, and student A is supposed to take his thumb and tap the table while singing the song in his head and tap on the table, and student B is supposed to guess what song it is. After 100 studies, only 2% of the people were able to guess the song, and even that probably was just a coincidence. So student B was frustrated because he couldn't understand what the hell student A is singing, and student A was surprised that he can't guess the song because it's so clear in his head. Like, I mean, he hears it, and he's tapping. Like, come on, can't you hear it? It's in my, like, listen to it. I can sing it. And the point of that study was that what's in our head is one thing, and when we pass that information to the next party, it's passed in a monotone sound, just like the tapping. So if you're going to tap on the table, this is what other people hear and see. So what's in your head has to go on paper. That was my number one problem of implementing the brand, of getting everybody in line, with really getting everybody in our company on the same page about what the hell are we doing. It was all in my head. And until I got it all down on paper, I was unable to get anything done. I'm not even kidding. I was spinning tires like just weeks and weeks and weeks, couldn't get anything done. The course that helped me, if you go to Hire Once and Forever, which is our virtual assistant staffing company, you go to Strategize, there's a link here. Take the course. There's a 30-day trial on the course. It's through a partner company. You can probably finish it in 30 days, to be honest, because I finished it in 30 days, the whole thing. So if you finish it in 30 days, you don't have to even buy the course. I think it's like $99 a month, month to month, if you want to buy it after 30-day trial. So what is this course? It's a course that touches everything, from branding to leadership to management to marketing. What I would want you to do if you're going to implement the branding is just go through the first 2 courses. You don't have to go through all 12. The first 2 is more than enough. And honestly, going through the course quickly, you can probably do it in an hour. It took me 40 hours to go through the course because I was really brainstorming and thinking about what to put on paper. The course basically asks you very tricky questions about who you are, why you're doing what you're doing, your unique value proposition, and all this other stuff. And it really kind of gets in your head. And if you put the right answer on the paper or into their website, you're going to end up feeling really good when you're going to go to sleep when you're done with the 2 first courses, because everything that's in your head will now be on paper. And that paper can now be shared with your team or your future team. Highly recommended. Unfortunately, I had to find all of this the hard way. So the hard way cost me about $130,000 and 2 years of time. We started doing one branding for Shopping Cart Elite. Then I took the course first and realized that we did it completely wrong. So then we did the branding the second time. And then I read the culture code and I realized that we did the look and feel incorrectly, even though, the course helped me. The course, for the branding course, has 3 steps for branding, and one of them, which is the last one, is look and feel, and I couldn't figure out what I want to do with look and feel. And the culture code really kind of nailed it and explained to me what I want to do with the look and feel. If you notice on Shopping Cart Elite, all the colors are very similar to each other. We used like this sunset orange on the photos, so all the photos have a similar theme. Just pay attention to it. Like I'm telling you, we spent a lot of time picking and choosing what to put on Shopping Cart Elite. Just take a look at it on shoppingcartelite.com and look at the fine detail of the things we implemented, because we spent 2 years doing it. It was all put together through the courses. So if you're starting from scratch and I'm telling you you can go and try these courses and do the book, you can potentially save yourself 2 years of wasted time and money if you implement that. Continuing on the positioning, right? Just to recap, we are talking about how to get to a $10 million company. We're talking about positioning, and we basically said that if you have this gut feeling, and I speak to some people and they do have that gut feeling, and if you don't have that gut feeling, well, maybe you got to reevaluate, which is this part, do you have a healthy net profit, and do you have a unique value proposition? Assuming that this is done, like you have this really good gut feeling and you're going to say, I need to floor the gas right now, tomorrow, and we'll be successful. This is the next thing that you should consider. Is your brand in line with you flooring the gas? Why? Because everything is in your head and not on paper. Your staff might not be in line with the growth. What ends up happening is you're going to put yourself into chaos. You're going to grow, double, triple, or quadruple. And next thing you know, you have to hire more staff. There's no way you're going to do all this with the existing staff. You have to hire new staff. The new staff has to go through training. They have to understand your company. They're not going to be as experienced as your existing staff, which means they need to understand your brand. And because they never worked with you, and you're going to be hiring faster than you can even train them, it's going to get very misaligned very fast. So brand is important. So your customers will understand what to expect from you and your company. The employees will understand what the customers are expecting. You will be able to put your vision and everything that you want to do with the company on paper, share it with both your customers and your employees, and everybody should be in line with the brand. So assuming you did the brand, right now you want to press the gas pedal because you think you got it. You nail down the brand. You're like, okay, I'm very happy with the brand. I'm good to go here. So what's next? Next is your tools. So if you're using Shopping Cart Elite, again, that's a good start, but it might not be everything you need because you might need the easy data feed integrations to automate your inventory, to automate your orders. Bottom line is, if tomorrow you double, triple, quadruple your orders, what's going to happen? If you need to hire more staff on the operations side, well, maybe you need to rethink pressing the gas pedal until that process is fully automated. Customer support, right? I mean, do you really need more people in customer support to answer the phones? Or maybe your sales copy on your website is not in line. Maybe you just need to add more Q&A. We're about to roll out question and answer in the reviews. I believe it's going to be an add-on feature because it's through a third party. But even regular reviews, which is included in Shopping Cart Elite, what if you had more reviews? What if you had better sales copy? What if you had Q&A? You might not need more customer support people because you're going to cut the phone calls altogether. So there's a way to cut support, cut order processing, and automate the business to the point where even though, let's say, by you automating it today, you're only going to save an hour of time, but what's going to end up happening is if you're going to grow double or triple tomorrow, you don't need to hire new staff because it's automated. So it's going to run an extra minute. No big deal. Even if it runs an extra 10 minutes, it's not a problem. So you can easily scale to 10 million by automating the processing and making sure that your sales copy and your sales funnel on the website is in place in order to minimize your customer support. And these are just two examples. I mean, you probably know better than I do what you need with your business operations. On the marketing side, I mentioned earlier that on our YouTube channel, I have copies of the previous webinars, and there are specifically two, which is engagement versus sales and successful Google AdWords campaign and predicting a budget. These two really kind of nailed it as far as understanding how to create your formulas for your paid marketing campaign and how to measure it by the second instead of weeks or months. You can go ahead and watch these. It will kind of touch on both of these examples. I will touch on one example here with remarketing because we're about to launch that inside Shopping Cart Elite, and we've been waiting a while to do that. So here is the situation with remarketing. If anybody's not familiar with remarketing, is if I go to some website, I'm not going to do that now, not to waste time, but basically you go to one website, they place a cookie in your browser, you go to the next website, and it shows you the ad from the first website. So they're kind of following you around. The biggest problem I found with remarketing is that if you have 1,000 people coming to your site and you're remarketing to all of them, you're going to remarket to people who have poor engagement, you're going to remarket to bot ads who are not interested in your product. So out of the 1,000 people, let's say if you're working with a 10% excellent engagement, it's only 100 people that you even need to consider to remarket to. And let's say out of those 100 people, let's say only 10 are really interested in your product and maybe they're shopping around or whatever they're doing. So really there's only 10 people that you need to remarket to. For anyone selling high-ticket items like Richard, this could apply to you. You have 100 people come to the site and only 2 really are looking to buy your product. Well, at the moment, you might not know who those 2 are, but now between doing email marketing using engagement as well as remarketing using engagement, now you can take, let's say, $25 budget and apply it to that one person or 2 people. And guess what? That would be equivalent to applying $25,000 if you did not do that type of segmentation for that type of engagement. So what we're planning on doing is we get a visitor come into the site, they start engaging with the site, we trigger a remarketing pixel on them, and based on our analysis, we only need to trigger like 3 or 4 per day, people who were interested and did not set up an appointment. And by applying like $15 budget on each one, which means, the whole campaign might run $2,000 per month between everybody, we are going to do about 75 impressions. So as this person is going to browse the internet, and we're going to set like a limit how many times per day, but maybe 4 or 5 times per day, he's going to see an ad anywhere he goes, CNN or YouTube or wherever he goes, he's going to keep seeing our ad. And it's only costing us $20. If we needed to not use this type of technology and pay money to reach those people, we're looking at over $1 million budget on marketing per year. And now it's going to be a few $1,000s. Having the right marketing tools, you already have them, but you need to implement them. If you use Shopping Cart Elite, you have them, is important before you press the gas pedal. So Richard with Green Frontiers, I actually spoke to him today and I told him, look, we need to redo your sales funnel to switch to email first and sale later and get people's email, because people who are considering his product don't make a decision until at least 2 to 4 weeks. So we need to re-engage them, and potentially we can do that through remarketing and email marketing together. Finally, with T Software, which is the Threat Engagement Analytics, which is inside Shopping Cart Elite, on T Software's website, under Services, we have Conversion Ratio Optimization and Marketing Report. The only thing I can tell you about it is that if you are preparing to press the gas pedal, or you want to align yourself and kind of position yourself to press the gas pedal very soon, I would highly recommend ordering this. If you are on the Elite plan, we started offering this at no charge to Elite plan clients. So if you are on the Elite plan and you're preparing to press the gas pedal, you can reach out to us via Skype to schedule one of these for you. If not, you could get this report before you press the gas pedal. It's going to save you, I don't even know how much money, but it's going to save you more than the report. I can guarantee you that. So continuing on with positioning, and this is the last slide on positioning, knowledge. I'm going to just kind of touch all of these. I'm going to talk about a few different examples. Information will change the situation. More information you know is going to change your situation. Sometimes you're confused. You're like, oh my God, how do I do this? Or how do I do that? And next thing you know, you find that solution and you're like, oh my God, now I know what to do. So if you're confused on how to move forward, or you're confused about whatever challenge you have, you just need more information. That's all you need. Maybe you don't know the answer, and maybe you don't know people who know the answer, but I can guarantee you that there is an answer. You just have to know where to look and be persistent in looking. Of course, if you're trying to reach 10 million, just ask me. I've read, I don't even know how many books, probably close to 100. So I can guide you to at least the right direction, which is what we're doing now in this webinar. If you don't know the answer to something, just find the answer. You're going to find something. You're either going to find an excuse or you're going to find the answer. You're not going to, it's going to be one or the other. The next point is mastering the maze. So here's the thing. I thought I knew stuff. I was able to get a company with $20,000 in funding to $4 million completely bootstrapped the first company. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so smart. And later on, I realized how stupid I was. You actually don't know anything until you get to the point where if your goal is to, let's say, make $1 million inside your personal bank account, not the company bank account, but you personally have $1 million in assets, and you don't have it yet, then you don't know anything about how to get there. Because if you did, then you would have it, right? So you just need to face that fact that you might not know anything at all, even though you know a lot. And that's how I feel. I still feel this way. I always have that kind of mindset that, oh my God, I really don't know much, even though compared to who? To compare to Donald Trump, I probably don't know much. Compared to someone who's just starting out, I know a lot. But then again, if Donald Trump, if I asked him about threat engagement analytics, he probably would have no clue what I'm talking about, and vice versa. So, but going to Donald Trump, I wrote an article, Level Up to Donald Trump. You can Google it, type in shopping Cordelite, level up to Donald Trump. And in the article, I basically said, if Donald Trump came to you today without his connections or money and offered you to scale your business, would that help you be more successful? Think about this for a second. I'll just repeat it one more time. If Donald Trump came to you today, your office says, listen, Richard, I'm Donald Trump. I don't want to give you any money. I don't want to connect you with any of my venture capitalists, but I want to use my knowledge to get your company to $10 million. Do you think I can help you? And of course, he's going to probably say yes. But how much are you going to cost? Donald's going to say, you just have to pay me $4 per hour, and that's it. You don't have to pay me any more than that. I know this sounds silly, and I kind of use this as a metaphor, but if you go to Amazon or Audible, you can buy a book for like $20 where Donald Trump actually tells you the steps to take your business to that type of level. He's basically giving you one-on-one consulting on how to do it for $20. Sometimes we have these aha moments like, oh, I know that. Yeah, but why don't you do it, right? Like, just because we know it and we don't do it, that doesn't mean you really know it. You know it exists, but knowing and doing is two different things. If you answer that Donald Trump can help you, so why not hire him for $4 an hour? You don't have time to speak to him? Well, what if he came personally? Would you have time then? Well, why don't you hire him through a book? And speaking of a book, I'm actually putting together a book now because I have so much content. I just want to compile it so I can give it to businesses within the tier we're targeting. And it takes a lot to write a book. I mean, I haven't finished it, but I'm preparing it, and man, it's a lot. I have to really be passionate about the subject. I really have to put it together. I have to publish it. I have to pay money. I mean, it's taking me a long time to put this together. Donald Trump has like 10 books. Right? I mean, he's giving it to you for $20. Why not take advantage of it? Everybody's so busy with their daily grind, you don't take advantage of knowledge, which is why you may be stuck where you are, because you need more information to be unstuck. The information is there, literally, in front of you, and you're just not taking it. You have to be like kicked in the behind to take the information. It's crazy. And I was the same way, so I'm not going to blame anybody here because I was literally the same way. Once I saw what difference it makes to level up, it completely changed this. I'll cover that in a bit, but once we get to the leadership part, I'll reference a few books that completely changed the way we do business in our company. Hopefully it's going to help you as well. What kind of books are there? There's Strategies from Consultants, aka Donald Trump gives you consulting. There's stories about CEOs, right? You got Amazon, you got Steve Jobs' biography, there's a few other good ones. Stories, they tell you how they started, their mindset, what they did, how they did it, the difficulties that they faced. You can learn a lot from it. I mean, it's like going having a beer with Steve Jobs. I mean, seriously? He's not alive anymore, but even if he was, chances are you probably would never have an opportunity in your life to sit with him and talk to him about his life, and he just gave you a book for $20 to go and listen to his story. Get a beer and go listen to his story. What's the problem, you know? This is my advice to you. Many people might not have time for a book, but this here will give you no excuse not to do this. Audible.com sells audiobooks, and you can get it through a membership. It comes out to be $7 a book, literally. It's ridiculously cheap. And you can listen to it when you're in the house or you're not doing stuff or you're taking a trip from work to work, shopping, waiting for your wife, whatever. And Audible allows you to multiply the speed of how fast you're going to read it. So if you have a 12-hour audiobook, you can finish it in 4 hours because you can multiply it by times 3 of the speed. You can tell I read a lot. I have a very big collection. I went through so many headphones. It's not even funny how many headphones I went through. And I could not find a headphone that will be so comfortable that I want to wear it. Like I actually want to wear it and I don't mind wearing it and doesn't deteriorate after a month. So I found these headphones. They are freaking awesome. These are my favorite headphones. I love them. And I would highly recommend you getting them. They're comfortable, leather, wireless, and it's $65 on Amazon. Whenever you're free, just put them on. Your phone is right next to you. Press play, and there you go. Unlimited knowledge. Unlimited knowledge on demand. I need to start doing this. It's just super cold in New York, and it's snowy. So I'm not being consistent with it, but I used to be, which is taking a walk. So on my calendar, I actually said that I don't care what's going on. I'm going to just leave, and I'm going to take a walk for an hour. And during that walk, I'm going to listen to my audiobook. And when I used to do that, I would actually go through 3 times more books than I do today. And I found that very beneficial. So if you live in a warm climate, you definitely don't have any excuses now. Leadership. We have employees, right? Whenever I ask somebody to hire an employee, and I ask a lot because it helped us a lot, and I'll explain why, and I think you will agree with the statement I'm going to make. When I say, hey, hire somebody to help you, right? And they're like, oh, I don't have money, or oh, I don't have a budget for it, or oh, something. But in reality, each employee is actually going to bring you revenue. Maybe not immediately, but ultimately they're going to bring you revenue. Let me explain why. If you were to hire yourself an assistant right now, and that assistant is capable of replacing, let's say, 60% of your work today, let's say a month passes by and you paid that assistant, whatever, $1,000 for the month, so you're $1,000 negative, technically. But now, a month later, 60% of your work is depleted. You have an extra, let's say, 6 hours to do whatever you got to do. What's going to happen to your company when you have 6 free hours a day? You're going to make more money, most likely, because you're going to do something. Even if it doesn't make more money, you're going to do something that could potentially make more money or progress the company. Let's say you have a good employee today. What happens when you get an assistant for your good employee to replace that employee? So next thing you know, that employee right now has nothing to do. They got completely replaced. 100% of the work replaced to an assistant. That employee has nothing to do. What's going to happen to your company? Of course, you can fire that employee, but that's kind of silly because that employee is fully trained. That employee can start doing new tasks. Guess which tasks? Maybe your tasks, because they know what you do. They just don't have time to do it. You know how I said information changes situation? Well, if you were looking at employee as an expense, of course you're not going to hire them. But if you're looking at employee as revenue because it's going to replace you or replace one of your staff who's going to then increase your revenue, well, there you go. An employee is actually an increase in revenue. Instead of doing marketing, get an employee to replace you. In one of the webinars that I recently hosted, and I'm kind of glad I did before I did this one, the subject of the webinar is how to successfully hire overseas staff. Highly recommend you watch it because this really going to kind of deep dive in how we manage overseas staff. You just need a laptop. That's all you need. You just need a laptop. Just buy yourself a single laptop and put it next to you and let the virtual assistant overseas, which is going to cost you very little, log into the laptop whenever he's working and work alongside of you. And you're going to tell him what to do and teach him or her your work, and they will be next to you on that remote laptop. If you're curious why that webinar on YouTube that I just showed you goes into a deep dive on why, how, and how often and so on. But bottom line is that I've tried probably every possible way to hire overseas staff, and over the past 6 years, I don't think I've found a better way other than getting a laptop next to you and having them work off of the laptop next to you, and that's it. Why? Because when they're not working, the screen goes black and you know they're not working. If they are working and they're moving the mouse around, eventually you get used to it and you stop looking at the screen when the mouse is moving around because you have your own stuff to do. But when they are working but not actually working because they're confused, the mouse stops and the activity on the screen stops, and usually your eye kind of shifts to the left or the right, wherever your laptop is, and you notice that they are stuck and you can easily help them. And using remote team viewer, they can then unmute themselves and talk to you. You can answer their questions and they can proceed working. So it's very convenient, and that's very important, because if this cannot be convenient for you, it's not going to work. The question becomes, you want to grow to a $10 million company, or you want to grow to a $100 million company, but can you lead a team that big? Like, what are you going to do? I was not able to lead a team with my previous company. We had, I think, like 50 employees at our peak, and it was a freaking disaster. It was more of a kindergarten than a company. With Shopping Car to Lead, I started learning about leadership and managing teams, and even today, I can lead a 30-people team, and I can possibly, maybe, never tried it, lead a 300-people team. Most likely, I will not be able to lead a 3,000-people team if I don't have the right staff and the right seats. Let's say if you put me into a company that just got merged and everybody's just all over the place and say, "Here, go manage this team." I mean, I'll probably manage somehow, but it's probably not going to be very good. And if you get to 30,000 people, forget it. I'm not even going to take that job. I don't care if you pay me $1 million. I'll get fired. Why take that job just to get fired? Like, I won't be able to do it, most likely. You might say, well, yeah, I want to grow to this big company and I can be successful. And what's going to happen when your team grows? Like, how are you going to lead this whole team? This is where branding comes in, which is why all these big companies talk about branding, because it's a big deal. If you don't have the branding in place, how are you going to get 3,000 people in line with your company? You have to start with a laptop. If you have no staff, or you have very little staff and you just need more and you can't afford staff, virtual assistants, $3, $4, $5 an hour, no excuse not to have it. You buy a laptop, that's how you start. Not hire a person or whatever, but buy a laptop so it's next to you. So you know that, okay, I just bought a laptop, I spent money. If it doesn't work out, I'll just keep the laptop for myself, but you have a laptop next to you and you're going to know that you need to get a person working on it. So continuing with leadership, I mentioned this earlier, that if you're going to start trying to do this whole thing, really building out this $10, $20 million company, but possibly going public one day, you got to go into this with an attitude that you know nothing. I'm not even kidding. You go into this that you know everything, and there are some people that I speak to that just sound like, oh, I know everything. You're not going to get far. The 2 books that changed our company around, very thankful for the authors for writing them. Traction by Gino Wickman. Once you finish that one, you can do E-Myth Revisited. Traction is basically a strategy book with very specific strategies to implement. It's going to take you about a year to implement them in your company. Again, don't panic when you read it and realize you have nothing implemented, because this is supposed to be fun and it's going to take time to implement. Traction will play a huge role in your company, and E-Myth will play a huge role because it's going to teach you about systemizing things. And if it wasn't for E-Myth or Traction, we probably wouldn't be where we are today with Shopping Car Lead. These 2 books here, I can see us being in the same place as we were 3 years ago if it wasn't for these 2 books. These 2 books freaking woke me up, opened my eyes, and I'm like, holy crap, I have no idea what I'm doing. When I read these 2 books, I'm also thankful for the person who recommended both of these. But that's when I kind of jumped onto Audible and started like just reading everything, and I was amazed at how much stuff I don't know. If you get anything out of this webinar, just get Traction, and you will thank me in a year, if not sooner, because everybody who I refer this book to comes back and says thanks. Just like I said thanks to the person that suggested it to me. The rule that you should be aiming for is a 30-30-30-10 rule. So 30% is your active work, 30 is proactive time with a team, 30% proactive time alone, and 10% to just kind of enjoy your day at work. If you are not doing your schedule this way, this is what you should align yourself to. This is how your schedule should be on leadership. I wrote an article about it. It's an in-depth article about that. It's called Eliminate Reactive and Gain Proactive Time. So again, if you go to Google, Shopping Car Lead, Eliminate Reactive and Gain Proactive Time, you'll find this article. You can read it. I go in depth on the examples and my personal schedule and so on. The mindset of a leader. This concept, the first time I heard about it, was from the Steve Jobs book. Because throughout the whole book, when he was interviewing people or whatever, he was always pitching LSD. You should take LSD because you're going to see the world different. And that kind of stuck in my head. It's like, why does, like, this, the guy is crazy. Like, he's like the richest man in the world, built the richest company twice, and he's like pitching it. The way I pitch Shopping Car Lead, the way I pitch whatever, and he's like pitching this LSD. I'm like, oh my God. So I started researching about it, and I realized that all of these individuals, great artists and scientists and authors, they're all pitching these drugs. And I couldn't put the two together. I'm like, I don't get it. There's something behind the scenes. I need to understand logically how this works. So then, in one of the books, I was introduced to Myers-Briggs. Myers-Briggs is a psychological test. I don't know if anybody took it here, but we apply it pretty heavily when we hire people. Myers-Briggs, basically, you take a small test, like 80 questions, and then it tells you what your personality type is like, and it kind of nails it down into 4 different segments when it has to do with work. You're either a worker, a manager, a leader, or a visionary. Those are the 4. The problem is, depending what your Myers-Briggs type is, you think a certain way, and there's no way you're going to think any way differently. And I don't know if anyone here, I'm sure, like, when you have a beer or you get drunk or you manipulate yourself and you feel different until you get sober again, and then you feel the same like you used to. But during that transition stage, when you're drunk, for example, you're a different behavior type. If you take the test when you're sober or when you're drunk, you will be completely 2 different behavior types. So then I started putting the 2 together. I'm like, okay, this is interesting because me personally, I'm a visionary. I need to be more like my customer. The behavior type of the world population, I think like 70% of the world population is like ENTJ, I think. My behavior type is like 2% of the world, so I think very differently from how others think, and I feel it. I'm either in my own little world or I'm conscious about certain things, but I could not do certain things at work with my behavior type. In other words, when I was doing the branding especially, like I needed to feel what the customer feels, and I couldn't feel that because I have this behavior type. So then I started putting them together. I said, hold on a second. If these guys are pitching these different drugs, it probably means when they take the drug, they morph into a different behavior type, which is why they feel what they feel. This is why they make these crazy breakthroughs. So where is this all leading to? Before we get into hiring people and understanding people, you really need to understand your behavior type. You need to understand who you are, and you will have pros and cons in your behavior type. You will be good at certain things and not very good at other things. And you have no idea how many times I had somebody tell me, I just can't do this job. I just cannot do this branding. I can't do this. And I feel them, because if I was, let's say, drunk, which is what their behavior type is sober, I probably wouldn't be able to do that thing either, right? So which means they need to morph into a different behavior type. While researching what you can take, LSD is kind of too hardcore, but what is out there that could manipulate your behavior type and actually control it, what they legalized in Colorado, marijuana, you could actually use that to control your behavior type to do certain activities that you need to do. Now, if anybody is interested, I have a chart that I created. If you're going to get stuck, most likely if you're going to do your branding, you're probably going to get stuck. I mean, everybody gets stuck. This is the little chart. You take a test. The test is located here. And the test is going to tell you what you are sober, and it's going to tell you what your behavior type is. So it's going to say E, I, N, S, and so on. This is going to be the behavior type. If you cannot smoke, you can get a vaporizer, assuming you're in Colorado. And then you could go to a website called leafly.com, which tells you what each strain will do for you. And then you can mix the strains depending on where you need to shift in the Myers-Briggs. Then you could experiment and then take the test 30 minutes after, and you can see where you are on the Myers-Briggs scale. If you are the majority of the population and you just cannot think of how to do your branding correctly, you could potentially morph into any kind of different behavior type and then continue doing that particular task. So this is like a little tip for anybody who may be interested in that. I know it's a bit like an oddball. It's like, where the hell did that come from? But I think that there's enough proof to show you that we're all human, and with Myers-Briggs, we're a certain behavior type. All of the successful people in the world had to morph into different behavior types in order to achieve what they needed to do, and you're no different. So if you need to get to a certain level of knowledge and understanding about your business or about whatever you want to do, you may need to also experience that, unless you're just a genius and you can switch between these types. As far as employees, if you understand Myers-Briggs very carefully and you understand who your employee is, obviously you can't tell them to go and do this type of stuff, but you can understand why they make decisions that they make. A lot of times when employees drop the ball and decide shopping could lead, we then have a one-on-one meeting with them and try to understand why they did what they did. And usually Myers-Briggs answers that question, and I tell them what their behavior type is bad at, and I make them conscious about it, and so they can pay attention to that particular part. So for example, one of the behavior types is where you cannot see past the next action step. Since I'm pointing that out, that that is the case, then you should be more conscious about it and try to foresee it, even though that is completely against who you are. Bottom line is, when you hire somebody and you want to hire them into the right seat, you can't just hire the guy and say, oh, okay, we'll just put him here and hope it works. If you put Myers-Briggs into action, you can then easily, quickly kind of see who's a worker, who's a manager, who's a leader. And then if you want to achieve some kind of understanding for yourself and you're just not able to, I gave you some hints on what you can consider doing if Colorado. If you're not, then again, you can do it however you want to do it. As far as the benchmarks go, here's the benchmarks I follow. And I think that after you exceed the last benchmark, you can do whatever you want, because at that point, maximizing your revenues or bank accounts after that point is going to be pretty easy. 50,000 in the company account as a surplus, 50,000 in your personal account, then 250, then 1 million, 1 million. Once you get past 1 million, you're pretty much going public or getting acquired or doing whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. You're already successful at that point. So you don't have to take that huge jump and say, oh, I want to get to 10 million. Use this as your benchmark and see how far you can get using the tools that I gave you so far today in this webinar. Recap, you can start the course, Hire Once and Forever. After the course, I recommend reading Culture Code after the second course. Start Traction implemented. After you start Traction, do eMyth Revisited, implement that. Buy a laptop, preferably an i5. You don't want to buy a cheap one because then it's going to be slow, and if you're going to give your worker too many tasks, they're going to be unproductive. Hire a worker after you get the laptop. Get Audible membership. Get the wireless headphones that I mentioned. If you're ready to press the gas pedal, you could get the marketing plan from T Software, and we'll be happy to draft it for you and show you where you can go with it. This is the end of the webinar. And by the way, if you need that Excel sheet, just Skype me. I'll get you a copy. All right, guys. Thank you for attending, and have a good night.